Hello guys, and welcome back to another faction overview guide for the Lord of the Rings Total War mod for Realm Remastered. We do have quite a bit to go through today, with Mordor being one of the larger factions that you can start out as in the mod. And so without further ado, let's just kind of jump into our four big topics here. I'll go over them briefly just so you guys kind of know what you can expect from the video. But the first one I'll talk about are the initial provinces and starting locations for the faction. Second will be the army that you start with, and then third, the economy, and then lastly, just some expansion, tips that I would recommend doing. Obviously, you don't have to do what I recommend. It's just what I've done personally that I have found that has been really helpful for my own campaigns. So let's start in with our settlement. So you start with 7. 6 of them are going to be here, which I will go over each of them. Just to showcase kind of what buildings and whatnot you start with. But you have Morannon, or the Black Gate, which you don't have much here. You basically have the walls, which isn't the worst thing because it's a very big barrier for the rest of your empire, basically, however you want to look at it. Because your initial provinces here, other than Dol Guldur, which I will go over my tips and whatnot for Dol Guldur in the expansion part of the video, which will be later on. Just because it is so far away from the rest of your settlements, I really kind of just want to focus down here, actually in Mordor. Mainly because, your big threat for a good chunk of the time is going to be Gondor, which is, right on your doorstep. And unlike Divide and Conquer, I would say this mod does a very good job of correctly showing the stats on the battlefield and on the campaign map. Meaning, Gondor has some really elite troops, and your armies are just complete trash. But again, I will go into that later in the video, and let's just focus on the settlements for now. But a lot of the settlements, the rule of thumb really, for any of the settlements is recruitment. Unlike most factions in the game, I would say at least over half of the factions have very low population. Mordor does not suffer from that. They have, if I just click through the settlements here, if you look at this little marker here, that shows the population of the settlements. Even though your units have large unit numbers per unit card, you have the population to sustain that recruitment. A lot of factions actually do not have that, and so it's really hard to grow, an initial first army. But as Mordor, you don't have to worry about that. So it's really nice, if you get into a fight and take a bunch of losses, you can come back here safely because of how well and how defensible your initial territory really is. Just with the natural barricade, you have Minas Morgul here, you have the Black Gate up here defending you. It's really easy to retrain, to regroup, and then send out another 20 stack against Gondor here, where it's going to take them a lot longer to retrain their troops versus yours. And so let's just continue going through the settlements here. Durthang here has tier 3 walls, but really nothing much else, and it's kind of a recurring theme in Mordor. If we go here to Minas Morgul, again, here you have walls and the Lesser Orc spawning pit. And so really you have the defenses there for Mordor, but you don't have the economy or the military buildings just yet. For the majority of your settlements, I should say. A lot of it is developing them up. You have the defenses there, but you got to build the infrastructure. The Eye of Sauron here is really to start with anyway, your main recruitment center. But the good thing is, since you're so close to all your settlements, if you become under attack, or you're not that far from Gondor to launch an attack right away, and most of your units, if you can see here, only take 1 turn to recruit, so you're able to crank out large amounts of numbers, a large amount of troops really quickly and get them to the front lines. So, don't panic, if you look at your settlements here and you're like, oh shit, there's nothing to them. They have walls there and that's it. Don't worry, it's okay. You will build up the infrastructure. It will get there. And then if we go up to Dol Guldur, more or less the same. You got walls there and that's about it. But with that, I'll go into the economy later, but as you can see, in terms of building, you got a good amount of treasury to start with, and you're making a good income from the start. But with that being said, let's move into the army. So the initial army you start with, being Mordor, as you would expect, you got a lot of troops to start with. I mean, you got 10 units here in Minas Morgul. You got 6 units sitting out here. You got another 6 sitting just to the east of Minas Morgul with Gothmog. You got 10 units between and Sauron here, which you can't actually use Sauron. You actually have to capture the ring first. But I'll explain that process in a campaign that I plan on doing as Mordor. But you got 10 units here, you can drag and bring to the front line, either at Minas Morgul or through the Black Gate up here. And then, still got a few troops in Durthang and the Black Gate as well. And then the Nazgul are really good. If I just go and click on them, all of them have the Black Guards, which is just super, super high-powered cavalry. Really, really good unit. I'll go over them in the unit guide I plan on doing for Mordor, but really strong, really good unit there. And then you got a few units back here in Nurnen and Nargothrond, and really, I mean, just leave a few behind, but get them to the front lines. I've played like 50 to 60 turns 2 or 3 times in a Mordor campaign, and I've never had the enemy AI loop all the way around to try and attack your settlements back here. You can leave 1, maybe 2 units due to public order back here and just move on. Get them to the front lines. You won't be needing them back there. And then up here in Dol Guldur, you got a reasonable sized force. I would recommend getting some military buildings up here because you will come under attack pretty frequently, actually. Up here is Dol Guldur. I've had even rebels come up here. I've had Rohan come up here, as well as Lothlorien, and then eventually the Sylvan Elves will come down here as well. But again, once I toggle the Fog of War in the expansion side, you guys will see what I mean. Because I haven't been able to make videos, but long story short, they've added loads and loads of new settlements to the campaign. Myself and other testers had made the comment that, for a lot of factions, it's really hard to grow your settlements, or you're super spread out. And so the modding team did a really, really good job of adding settlements in to not only help your economy, but to help centralize your empire and help with public order and all that. So even though, those settlements are there for you to take, they're also there for the AI. So it's really easy just to become in contact with a lot of enemies really quickly. So just something to be, kind of aware of. Where you're putting your army, whether you're focusing it all down here, and just don't. If you want to hold on to Dol Guldur, you definitely can, but just don't forget about it. But yeah, other than that, in terms of the army, in terms of the army compositions, I should say, don't expect any miracles. You have orcs, this is like a mid to late tier unit, and they have 4 melee attack, 13 melee defense. Nothing great, nothing to be excited about. If you're throwing 20 units against Gondor's 20 units, depending on the difficulty you're playing on, you will struggle against them. It took a long time for me, because I'm used to playing elves and Rohan, where you're losing like 100, maybe 200 units in a super big battle, but you're dishing out like 3,000 casualties, right? Mordor is the complete opposite. You will lose 1 to 2,000 troops and only kill maybe 1,000 or 1,200, but you'll win, and that's okay. Because again, you're paying a couple hundred for your troops and other factions. With here, you just don't care if you lose them. They don't cost you anything. It's not a deal breaker if you lose, a unit of orc archers or lesser orc spearmen, because you just recruit another one the next turn and just send them. Mordor's strength in their army is not their quality; it is in their numbers. So keep that in mind. You have to be comfortable with losing lots of units in a battle. Sieges. And a lot of times, especially like Minas Tirith, do not cannot emphasize this enough. Do not bring one army to attack Minas Tirith unless it has like one unit in it. Auto resolve is not your friend in this game in terms of sieges. I would recommend fighting battles manually. I mean, unless it's like 18 units to like 4 with Mordor, I would recommend manually fighting them just to limit the amount of losses you'll take. Because again, Gondor will only need 5 or 6 units to beat 10 or 12 of yours. So in terms of that, think of it like a 2 to 3, like a 2 or 3 to 1 ratio for your troops versus Gondor's. Quantity versus quality in that regard, and yours is definitely more on the quantity side. With that, with the economy, how do you afford all those armies? Really nothing to be too worried about. Mordor makes pretty good money. They're one of the few. If I go into the building tree here and just click on this like villa building here, they have one of the few buildings that increases public order as well as tax income, and it goes up to 12% here, as you can see. They get mines and some settlements here, if I can find one. They also have the slave conscription, which if we go into the building tree, sorry, didn't mean to click that. There we go. You can go up here. You can get up increase plus trade and construction costs at the cost of public order. The slave, it does help your economy, but just keep an eye on public order. It's not worth building the building if your public order is going to go into the red and cause a riot in that settlement. So just be on the whereabouts of that. But yeah, I've never really struggled with a Mordor economy. They have mines. They have the slave in certain areas. They have the slave building. And a lot of their buildings, like here, the smithy increases their tax income bonus. The idol of the eye building tree increases their tax income. So it's really, really easy to get a lot of money really quickly. And obviously, the more you expand, the more money you'll generate as well. And so it's just a reoccurring theme. So I think that's all with the economy. A lot of their buildings being orcs, they're not really advanced in infrastructure, so it's really straightforward. It's to the point. A lot of it is all about just conquest. And one thing that will help you, that's helped me a lot, is if say you're running low on money and you're not sure what you need an economy building, your economy is struggling a little bit, and you want to know basically what your return of investment is going to be. Click on this settlement income button and then just click the building that you want to build, right? So if we look here, this is going to cost me 800 gold, right? But it's going to increase my income by like 165. So in less than 5 turns, I'm going to get my money back on that investment. Whereas if I build these mines that cost me 4,000, it's going to increase my income by 150. So it's going to take a little longer to get that investment back. Granted, at some certain points too, once you come in contact with some of your allies and you start trading, those economies for settlements can change and fluctuate. But really, a really good way to tell if a building is going to be worth its value in the short run is right here, where it just initially gives you that bonus to income or the bonus to taxes, to see there. But then lastly, expansion. I'll toggle the Fog of War here. And this last section, again, is just my personal tips. I'll zoom out here and so you guys can kind of see. I know you guys may not realize this, all these settlements added, but none of this, like right here, west of Rune, none of these were here when I first got hands on the mod. None of these settlements here to the north of Rune and south of Erebor, none of these rebel settlements were here. Same with a lot of these. I mean, you could say that about every area really, but it was just really bare boned, and it was just really hard to expand and have a well-rounded empire. But now that is definitely not the option. you can expand as any faction basically in any direction that you want to. You know, as long as you keep in mind of where your enemies are. And just to make sure, you know, the player doesn't just steamroll over rebel settlements, you can see here, you know, some of the garrisons are fairly large, just especially, you know, at bigger major choke points, just to make sure, you know, the player or the AI doesn't just steamroll and get a bunch of money and just make the game super easy basically and super tedious. With that being said, playing as Mordor, Gondor is a little bit of a trick. Osgiliath is a settlement that you nor any's faction can actually not rebuild at this stage. Think of it as just like a fort that never goes away, okay? So, you know, you can take it, you can conquer it, but really the only... I mean, it does play a vital role, but the only role it plays is allowing you to cross, as you can see here, without going all the way around. So, a lot of my campaigns, I'll actually keep a good-sized force there, just so I can traverse that, you know, pass through really quickly and get through the rest of Gondor, or just come up through Karahandros up here to the north, just so you're not sending your troops, you know, if I click this captain here, going up all the way around just to come back down here again. So I really, really recommend from the get-go, take Osgiliath just to allow yourself access to the rest of Gondor, and also it isolates these settlements to the south here. It's not like other games and or other future games and mods where you can traverse like the islands here. You actually need a boat. So really your only two points of crossing to get to Gondor and Minas Tirith quickly, if you want to go that route, is either Kaer Andros or Osgiliath. And remember, if you leave one of them open, you know, as long as you don't own this, it allows the AI to come through that path. So just something to keep in mind, depending on where you want to expand. But in my experience, taking Osgiliath on like turn 2 or 3 at the latest is really a really effective expansion idea. It allows you to isolate these two settlements here, just get rid of them. I have seen them, because I've ignored them at times, they will build troops here, they will build ships and bring troops up here from the south, and it's just a headache then you won't have to worry about. I don't worry about these settlements here. I honestly, I think I've played Mordor 3 times now, I have never conquered these settlements. I don't know if they're actually worth anything, but it's just the fact, if you look here, the initial size of the garrisons, you just need to, in my opinion again, you just need to put your forces in other places from the get-go and not capturing rebel settlements back here. Because it's not worth losing, you know, these major key settlements in Mordor itself just to capture rebel settlements that aren't really going to attack you while Gondor is going to. So yeah, expanding to the west here, excuse me, is a really good idea. Capturing some rebel settlements here just to establish some trade if you want some trade with Rune, or even coming a little further south and helping meet Harad, so you can get trade agreements with Harad. But really, I don't recommend going too far north or to the east, especially east. It's just, again, your focus playing as Mordor has got to be on taking out Gondor right from the get-go. Once you get Gondor kind of on their heels, it's a much less stressful campaign experience, because, again, their armies are much stronger than yours, you know, unit to unit. So getting them on their heels, getting rid of Gandalf, because if we look at his stats here, I mean, he's very, very strong. They have, I think Gondor is in terms of all the factions, has the most unique generals. They have Gandalf, Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, Denethor. They have Faramir, and I think Boromir starts up here as well. And then in Dol Amroth, or actually right here maybe? Yeah, they have the White Knights, which is like the Dol Amroth cavalry. So they have a lot of custom generals that are all really, really strong. So you really just want to get Gondor eliminated as quickly as possible, in my opinion. The other thing you can do is, to link up Dol Guldur is, to take Torith Nindor, and then these rebel settlements here, Runost and Baron Nin, I think is how you say it. But again, you gotta kind of decide for yourself. Toss a coin if you need to, if you don't want to decide. Because again, if you send a lot of force up here, you're taking forces away from down here. So you really just gotta weigh the pros and cons and make those decisions for yourself in regards to what you want to do and how you want to do that. And then lastly, with Dol Guldur, it's tricky. I've done a few strategies with them, with this settlement, where I've just straight up abandoned it. It is making you 950, gold per turn, which is a good chunk of your income to start with. But it can become a hassle having to basically just sit troops here, which they don't cost a lot, obviously. But, you definitely have to put more troops in Dol Guldur than what it initially starts out with if you want to hold on to it and defend it. And so, depending on where you put your focus, you may just have an army sitting up here basically doing nothing, because you're trying to expand in other places and you don't want to overextend yourself. Because if you start trying to conquer to the west here, or even to the south, and try and spread out in any direction here, you're going to meet enemies. You go to the south, you get Rohan. You go to the west, you get the elves. You go to the north, you get more elves. You go east or northeast, you get possibly elves, dwarves, and Dale. Dwarves here to the east. So really, in any direction other than south to your own settlements, in terms of expansion, Dol Guldur is very limited, because you'll just become super stretched out and thin. Because as you can see here, it's a 3-turn travel time to get to the first settlement to the east. Obviously, you're in close distance with Rosgobo there, but other than that, compared to the settlements down here, it's just very, very risky. Overall, I would say it's worth holding on to Dol Guldur. But again, you're gonna have to invest more money, more money into the recruitment up here, more money into the infrastructure, and really you're not gonna expand here too fast. But again, I'll leave that up to you. But that's just my 2 cents on it. It's very risky to expand with Dol Guldur, and I would just recommend staying here down to the south and to the west here. With that being said, that is my faction overview for Mordor. It's a longer one. I do realize that, and I do apologize, but there is just a lot to go over with them, because they are one of the bigger factions you can start out with in terms of just initial army and initial settlement size, and just empire size other than Gondor. But I hope you guys liked the video. I hope you learned something. I hope it helps you. Leave a comment on the video, what you liked. If I missed anything, feel free to throw it under the comments, and I'll do my best to answer it. I try not to forget anything. Some factions, there's just a lot to go over, and I am human, and I do tend to make mistakes. But feel free to leave a comment at the bottom of the video, or you can always wait for a live stream of when I'm playing Mordor and just ask me in a live chat then. And with that being said, I hope you guys have a good weekend, and I hope you stay healthy, and I will see you guys again soon. Bye.